Hello, hello, hello. How you doing? Should have had a joke to start this one off, but I don't. So we're just gonna get into it. Cool? Okay. So intelligence, now that we've talked about what it is and how they measure it and blah 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 blah. Is it nature or nurture? Is your intelligence based on how smart your parents were and what they passed on and what you were born with? Or is it how hard you work and it's the environment you're in? The answer? Both, right? If all else fails in this class, the answer is always both. Okay, so just going to give you a little bit of support kind of for both sides, and we're going to talk about some other factors that go into it. But okay, support for nature. Identical twins virtually score the same. That's a pretty strong support for nature, right? They share their genetics. Identical twins have very similar gray matter volume. And gray matter is what you think of like the exterior parts of the brain. When you see a picture of the brain, it's that, it's called gray. That pink area, right? The cerebral cortex that we've talked about. Versus the interior, that's called white matter. And gray matter is usually correlated, I guess, related to intelligence. Okay? So, basically what I'm saying there is identical twins share even the same amount of kind of their actual biological brain, right? Kind of. Whatever. Okay. By inserting an extra gene into mouse eggs, they had produced smarter mice. So, there is that neurological thing that they can do to increase intelligence. So why not do it to all humans, right? That's a different ethical question. Okay. Mental similarities between adopted children and their adopted parents roughly fade to zero as they get older, right? They're more similar to their biological parents with intelligence. Okay? So that's a pretty strong support for nature. Right? Okay, well, nurture. There's a ton of stuff that we could find for nurture. Your book points out a couple. There's an adoption agency in Iran trained to basically give kids under extreme deprivation to help teach them. And what they show is huge jumps and leaps in their language ability. And language, as many people have said, is a part of intelligence, right? So, by actually teaching a focus group, they can show improvement. So that's environment. Malnutrition can influence cognitive development. You see on a really small scale of the days where you're like really hungry and you can't focus in class. Imagine extreme malnutrition, right? And your ability to focus and your development, it's almost impossible. Okay? And this goes along with it. Severe poverty, which is related to malnutrition, affects physical development and your cognitive development. Okay? Have you ever heard of Head Start? My dad actually worked for this. The government funds, so preschool's optional, right? You don't have to go to preschool. People that send their kids to preschool have money to send them there. Whereas a lot of people can't, so they keep them at home. So the government has certain preschools that are funded by them that allow for poverty or kids in poverty to go, because they recognize that if you go to preschool early on, you're more ready for school and you have a higher emotional intelligence to socially deal with people. So basically that's saying the government has found evidence that we need preschool for all economic backgrounds. Okay? Like I said though, there's so much research out there that supports both. Think about, why do your parents send you to Heritage, right? There's huge arguments and support for private schools and smaller classrooms, right? relationships with teachers. Okay, now, why do different groups score differently in intelligence tests, right? Gender, for example, we're going to talk about gender. Then we're going to talk about ethnicities and race and how that's, there's differences there too. And so what's kind of the background there? Okay, so look at this. Average IQ for white Americans. What year is this? I don't remember. Average IQ is 100. For black Americans, it's 85. What the heck's going on there? Okay, and actually if you add this in, Hispanic Americans are kind of somewhere in the middle there. Now, this is extremely important, okay? Millions of minorities, millions, have higher IQs than the majority, okay? So, that's important to make sure I say that. This is just on average, though, right? So what's going on here? Why is there such a drastic difference in IQ? And really, the big reason here is environmental effects. Just like here, if you have the same pack of seeds, right, and you put it in poor soil and fertile soil, you're going to have these huge differences. Now, is there going to be variation within a group? Of course. Are there still going to be a couple that survive here? Definitely. Maybe something happens here and some of them fail in the fertile soil. Okay, but if you think about intelligence and race and just the soil that they grow up in, it's huge. It's massive. Socioeconomic backgrounds are a massive distinction between races. Now, a couple things to kind of point out, right, of how environment affects. So, we know that races are remarkably alike genetically, right? Crazy amount. So there's not the genetic component there, the nature component. It's the nurture component that differs. If you look at this, Asian students outperform North American students on math achievement and aptitude tests. There's a stereotype, right, of Asian students doing well in math. Why is that, right? What's the environmental difference there that's making that difference? And a lot of it, I mean, if you look at the Asian education system and the expectations there compared to America, sometimes, especially public school America, there's so much more respect, so much more homework, so much more kids doing what they're basically told to do. Anyway. Alright, here's some more evidence. Today's better prepared populations would outperform populations of the 1930s on intelligence tests. You guys looked at that the other day, yesterday. That is called the Flynn effect, right? The IQs are rising. And why is that? If you think about all the environmental things, you weren't born smarter than your grandparents. But your environment was drastically different. Like, my daughter is already playing like crazy alphabet games on the iPad and learning numbers and that kind of stuff that they didn't have. And food is better now. So there's so much that environmental things. Okay, white and black infants, babies, tend to score equally well on tests predicting future intelligence. So they have tests for predicting intelligence for babies. And we talked about the gaze, right? And in infants, there's really not a lot of difference there. So what does that kind of show you? That it's environmental, right? Okay. Different ethnic groups have experienced periods of remarkable achievement in different areas. I mean, I don't know why that's in there, but just saying that people in different environments thrive, right? And people in sucky environments, it's a lot harder to thrive. Okay, done here. So alright, normally what I would do is I would have a debate in class and say, who's smarter, girls or boys? We'd talk about why and blah, blah, blah. But we don't get to do that. But I'm sure Allie and Will still argue with each other. Okay. There's 7 main ways in which males and females differ. Alright, so let's talk about it. Number 1, girls are better spellers. Could you have guessed that? Only 30% of males spell better than the average female. What's up with that? I don't have anything. I don't have a reason for that. That's just what they found. Alright, similarly, where's my mouse? There we go. Okay. Girls are typically more verbally fluent and have larger vocabularies than boys. Interesting. Interesting. Is that because just they talk so much? Maybe. Girls are better at locating objects. Now, if I was somebody, a guy, I'd be like, is that intelligence, locating things? If you ask your parents, right, in your house, Mom, you go to your mom, Mom, where's this, right? That's usually what people do. Mr. Marchman is like the worst looker ever. He opens the fridge and says, I can't find it, and it's literally right in front of him. How many people's dads are like that? That's stereotypical. I apologize. Okay, what's the evolutionary reason behind that? Evolutionary. Girls, women were hunters and gatherers, right? They define things. Alright, girls are more sensitive to touch, taste, and color. What do you think? Is that intelligence? Or is that just sensation, perception? I'll let you argue that. Evolutionary reason? They had to figure out which berries would kill them, right? So that could be passed down. Alright, I feel like it looks like I'm ganging up on you guys. Boys outnumber girls in underachievement. However, boys also outnumber girls in overachievement. How about that? So what is that saying about girls? Girls are average. Boys have the high and the low. Okay, so let's see if I can draw this. So girls looks a little bit like this, intelligence. Right? Got a lot of people in the average, whereas guys looks a little bit more like this. Okay, so this would be underachievement, over. Is this painful for you? Overachievement? Right, and there's the average. It's not that drastic of a dip. I shouldn't have done that. It's more, they're closer here. But in general, you get it. That's interesting, right? Girls outperform, or boys outnumber girls in overachievement and underachievement. Interesting. So guys are either slackers or they're overachievers, huh? No, that's not what that means. Kind of. Okay, stop it. I'm done with that. Okay, almost done. 6. Boys outperform girls at math problem solving. But they underperform at math computation. Now, what could that mean? That guys have that ability to do the kind of the difficult problem solving, but girls with the details of math computation, inserting things into calculators, they make less errors. Because sometimes maybe guys are in the rush, trying to just get through stuff, don't want to do the simple stuff. They do the hard stuff. So this is interesting. Male high school seniors average 40 points higher on the SAT math test. Are you surprised at that? Probably not, right? A lot of, I don't know at Heritage, but I know AP Physics is dominated by guys. I don't know about calculus at our school, but tends to be more guys in math and science, right? And then lastly, women detect emotions more easily than men do. Is that intelligence? Well, you would argue that it's what kind of intelligence? Emotional intelligence, right? Okay. Cool. Okay, so the last kind of idea here is the question of bias. Are tests biased towards people? Are they biased against cultures? What do you think? Now, if you think about, let's say that you don't speak a language as well as others, right? Then I guess you could say it's biased, but if it's an English test, then it's probably intentionally biased there, right? But like the SAT, for example, is it less valid for some groups? And that's kind of the question that psychologists, there's a word called psychometricians, that they have to figure out. Just so you know, the major U.S. aptitude tests are not biased against cultures. They specifically have people hired to look into that to make sure. So, for example, the SAT has the same predictive validity for women, men, blacks, white, rich, poor. Predictive validity means how well they'll do in the future. So they've taken the SAT. The purpose is to predict how well they do in college, right? And it basically predicts equally as well for all those different groups. All right? And how do you even do that? I mean, it goes down to even the wording of questions and the names and questions and all kinds of stuff, and making sure that questions that a white person would get because it's just in their culture, where somebody else wouldn't because they don't quite understand what the question's asking or something like that. Okay? So even though there's not bias in that way, there is something called a stereotype threat. Now, basically what this is you are threatened by a certain stereotype that you are a part of. Okay? So, there's two big groups here. One, specifically, would be women in general. What's the stereotype intelligence-wise? It's changing, I think, over time, but is that we're less smart than guys. That stereotype is out there, right? Why are there less guys and girls in physics and math and that kind of stuff? Ability, but is there also a little bit of stereotype putting into that? Okay? So a self-confirming concern that one will be evaluated based on a negative stereotype. So here's your definition, okay? Make sure you understand this. It's when you think, let's say if you're a woman, okay? You think that you are going to be evaluated on that negative stereotype, like I'm not as smart as guys, I'm not as smart. And so what happens is you live up to that. Self-confirming concern. You live up to that. Like the self-fulfilling prophecy. Okay? Now, what they found out here is that this strongly appears among African Americans and women of all colors. So those are two different groups in general. We're talking about African Americans, guys and girls, experience the stereotype threat. And then the other group that they found experiences it a lot are women. So look at, this is interesting. Girls score higher when no male test takers are in the group. They're in a class of just all girls and take a test. They score higher. How about that? So why not on your SAT do you not split up into guys and girls? Right? How about this? Blacks score higher when tested by blacks than when tested by whites. So again, there's that stereotype, because if we saw the IQ scores earlier, right, with whites and blacks, there's that stereotype that I'm not going to be as smart. I'm not going to be as smart. And then it's verified when they had found that blacks score higher with tested by blacks. This is crazy, right? Is this blowing your mind? Anyway, sorry. Okay, that's your stereotype threat. and it exists, and it's hard to get around. The biggest thing, first of all, is for just people to be aware of it, of the stereotype threat, and to be able to kind of fight against it mentally. All right. Is that it for the chapter? I think it is. Test is on Monday, right? All right. Miss Julie will tell you what to do.